Since Oklahoma and Texas announced their move to the SEC in July of 2021, many media pundits have questioned the ability of either team to truly compete with the SEC. OU, they would say, doesn't play defense. Texas, they're just money and talk. They have nothing to show for their recruits. And while there is historical truth in both of these statements, I believe the SEC is in for a rude awakening of their own when the two blue bloods enter the league in 2024. By now, all of SEC country knows that OU and Texas are coming. However, I'm not entirely sure that SEC country has a grasp on the tradition and magnitude of these two programs. So, let me paint the picture. Oklahoma has a 72.5 winning percentage in over 1,300 games played. Texas has 70.2 in over 1,400. Oklahoma is a consistent top 5 program, regardless of metric, in the history of the AP poll, and has 7 AP national titles, good for sole possession of third all time. Similarly, Texas is historically a top 10 program in the AP poll and has 3 AP national titles. Oklahoma has 50 conference titles, and Texas has 33. Oklahoma has 7 Heisman Trophy winners, and Texas has 2. Oklahoma has 82 consensus All-Americans, while Texas has 63. These two programs are two of the greatest in the history of the sport and stand toe-to-toe with any other program in the SEC, with the sole exception being possibly Alabama. The concept that two programs, such as Oklahoma and Texas, would enter any conference and struggle is not historically supported. But what about the strength of schedules? Oklahoma and Texas got to play in the Big 12 before. Yes, and Georgia and Tennessee got to play in the SEC East. The Big 12 has many solid programs with strong developmental coaches, but let's not kid ourselves. The SEC is a different ballgame. But Oklahoma and Texas both do boast winning records against the SEC historically. They also have historical dominance over Texas A&M and Missouri, which have both shared conferences with the newcomers before. OU and Texas will have few issues competing against the middle-of-the-pack SEC teams, similarly to how Alabama will have few issues competing against those teams. To question either against less consistent programs, such as Auburn, Florida, or Tennessee, who have had great stretches of dominance, but struggle to maintain consistency, is not historically backed. While Oklahoma and Texas both improved their strength of schedules, so did the rest of the league. Adding two historically strong teams to an already elite conference has made the league a juggernaut. And unless you happen to be like Missouri and get the luck of the draw, your in-conference schedule will be tougher than the rest of the country's. What about the depth of the programs or the infrastructure? It might take them a few years to catch up to the league. Well, there are 4 programs that show why this is simply bad argument in my opinion. Missouri, Texas A&M, TCU, and West Virginia. The best way to measure the transition between conferences is to look at how other editions fared. So, let's take a look at how these programs transitioned into their respective conferences. In 2011, TCU football was a year past their Rose Bowl victory over Wisconsin, with quarterback Andy Dalton. In what would be their last season in the Mountain West, they replaced Dalton with Casey Pakal and finished with an 11-2 record, including a 7-0 record in conference. They finished the season with a bowl win over Louisiana Tech and a number 14 finish in the AP poll. The following season, Gary Patterson and the Horned Frogs entered the vaunted Big 12. The result? TCU finished with a 7-6 record, but only a 4-5 record in the Big 12. Their 6th loss came in the 2012 Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl against Michigan State. In 2013, things ended more poorly than the prior for TCU. They finished 4-8 overall and 2-7 in Big 12 play. So TCU's first couple of seasons in the Big 12 with OU, Texas, and the like were not very successful. West Virginia's story is somewhat similar. In 2011, West Virginia finished with a 10-3 record, including a 5-2 record in the Big East under Dana Holgorsen. This included a 70-33 victory over Clemson in the Orange Bowl. In 2012, they entered the Big 12 with a strong core, including Geno Smith and Tavon Austin. Despite this, West Virginia finished that season with just a 7-6 record and a 4-5 record in Big 12 play. The sixth loss was, again, in their bowl, ironically against former rival Syracuse. The following season, the Mountaineers had to replace their core of weapons and finished 4-8 overall and 2-7 in conference. So, I think it is fair to say neither West Virginia nor TCU had the depth to seriously compete entering the Big 12. In 2011, Missouri came into the season with a competitive squad, but with key losses of quarterback Blaine Gabbert and edge Alden Smith. Despite these, Tigers coach Gary Pinkel and co. managed an 8-5 overall record, including a 5-4 record in Big 12 play and a bowl win over North Carolina. Then they entered the SEC. In 2012, Missouri finished 5-7 overall and only 2-6 in SEC play. Missouri's initial season in the league was largely a failure considering they were in the SEC East, although they did manage to log wins against Tennessee and Knoxville and Kentucky. However, in 2013, Missouri would rebound and finish with a 12-2 overall record, with their only losses coming in overtime to South Carolina and against Auburn in the SEC Championship. Led by players like edge Michael Sam, receiver Dorial Green Beckham, and defensive lineman Coney Ealy, they would also beat Oklahoma State in the Cotton Bowl to finish 5th in the AP poll. So while their initial season in the SEC was arguably a disaster, their second season was a huge rebound and success. In 2011, Texas A&M entered with high hopes under head coach Mike Sherman. However, despite having future NFL starter Ryan Tannehill at quarterback, the Aggies limped to a 7-6 record and a 4-5 record in the Big 12. Prior to their bowl win over Northwestern, Sherman was canned, and A&M turned to Houston coach Kevin Sumlin to reinvent their program heading into the SEC. And reinvent he did, as A&M would finish 2012 with an 11-2 record, including a 6-2 record in SEC play. They were led that season by offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury, as well as the 2012 Heisman Trophy winner Johnny Manziel and star wide receiver Mike Evans. The following season was more of a mixed bag. The Aggies finished 18th in the AP poll with a 9-4 overall record and a split 4-4 record in conference play. So while their second season in the SEC was not great, it did finish with an AP appearance. In my opinion, what this history shows is that there is a depth struggle for teams entering the Power 5, such as TCU, and to some extent West Virginia, but that there is little to no difficulty of transition for Power 5 teams between conferences. The success Missouri and Texas A&M had would have likely been similar in either conference, and it reflects through their records before and after entering the SEC. So what kind of teams is the SEC getting in Oklahoma and Texas? While I would like to spend less time here as there is a lot to dive into, I would project both squads to be pretty strong. Texas just made a college football playoff and returns star quarterback Quinn Ewers. While they do have many losses from 2023, including defensive lineman T'Vondre Sweat and Byron Murphy II, running back Jonathan Brooks, tight end Jatavion Sanders, receivers Xavier Worthy, Jordan Whittington, and Adonai Mitchell, they brought in key transfer targets at those positions, and also returned almost their entire offensive line. In addition, they drew one of the more favorable in-conference schedules in the SEC. Oklahoma just came off a 10-3 season, and while they lost quarterback Dylan Gabriel, they willingly chose to allow him to leave for youngster Jackson Arnold to take over the reins. OU also has most of their defense back, which projects to be one of the best in the SEC, as well as what expects to be one of the best receiving corps in the country. OU's biggest question mark is along the offensive line, which brought in transfers to plug and play, but brings back little production from 2023. So while OU and Texas on paper may not be up to the standard of Georgia, in my opinion, they are very capable of competing with and beating any other SEC team, especially considering the coaching change at Alabama. So while that is all great, the SEC has no reason to fear Oklahoma and Texas, right? Well, there's that one thing that SEC schools do the best: recruit. For years, Oklahoma and Texas have been behind the eight ball in recruiting in various aspects. While Oklahoma and Texas have plenty of money to throw around, they've been in the Big 12, which simply does not produce the amount of NFL talent that the SEC does. And adding that SEC revenue bump and brand awareness from ESPN will not hurt either. In my opinion, when the SEC added Texas A&M and Missouri in 2012, this opened up the state of Texas to be plucked by SEC schools more than ever, as well as adding the state of Missouri to the recruiting battlegrounds. By adding Oklahoma and Texas, the SEC is not necessarily adding something they had no control over. The conference is simply fortifying a partial control they already had. This move will only strengthen OU and Texas recruiting in the state, and I think this can already be seen in recent years' results. OU and Texas will also now have just as much of a chance to pluck players from Florida, Georgia, and the like, as those schools will of picking their top prospects off based on conference and geographic footprint. Oklahoma and Texas are two of the blue bloods of college football. So while many question if the new kids on the block are ready for the challenge, I think the old SEC deserves some questioning of their own.